where we at? 3 minutes to 3 local time in Brisbane, or 3 minutes to wherever it is on the hour where you are, and the kickoff time for this webinar. I just got a question: is everyone else's chat function disabled? And Rita, if you could just check that, and Rita's in the background.
We have enabled chats coming in from Arva Sardi, from Sharjah. There's somebody who's writing, so it has been enabled for everyone.
Rings a bell, that school, when I was over there. Well, might need translation there for the Arabic. If we can do that. Will it do? No. Well, Shoalhaven, south of Sydney, isn't it? South coast of New South Wales. St George Rugby League territory, I think. Shannon from Melbourne. She's probably an AFL person, Australian football.
Yeah, go AFL.
But big here now too. Andrew's going, what is he talking about? That's not chess. If you want a good AFL story related to mathematics, Dr. Calvin Irons, a wonderful maths educator, once said to me, he asked the students how they would calculate 38 plus 37, and one student's response was, well, that would be 6, 2, 6, 2, 12, 4, have I got that right? No, 6, 2, 6, 1, 12, 3. And so what are you talking about? He said, well, in AFL, if you score 6 goals and 1 behind, it's sort of a slight miss of a goal, you get 6, 1 is 37, and 6 goals and 2 behinds would be 38. So altogether by halftime, you'd have 12 goals, 3 behinds, your score would be 37, which effectively means he was working in a base 6 rather than the base 10 number system. Someone there, Michelle, saying you can't hear anything. That sounds like it's probably at your end, Michelle. Just if you would check your sound settings. Just checking if I can bring something up there just to show you. Camera. It's okay, everyone else is here. I shouldn't have to play with anything there. Hopefully you can resolve that sound issue. Sometimes switching between headphones and so on may be the way to go. We're on 3 o'clock. Let's see. Yeah. Just if you check your system settings, open sound. And one open there. Yeah. No, that's fine about the certificate. I can make a note in case we don't get any other requests. So, time to maybe minimize the screen. Oops, sorry. Just reduce that and go back a few slides. That's not looking. All right. So welcome to the live webinar, everyone, on artificial intelligence. It's certainly a big topic. I think the beginning of last year was when it first really seemed to be hitting the airwaves. And this, having a look at what our presenters today have for us in stall, certainly looks very interesting. And there they are. Andrew Crisp, who you've just seen on screen, is the head of products, the content man for us here at Matific. Andrew previously lecturing in mathematics education, and certainly has wonderful ideas for how we can help students with their mathematics through digital platform. And then Kimberley is the deputy over at Pallara School. When I first visited Pallara School, it was a different site, a two-teacher school, just back in the 1990s, or as one student once said to me, the olden days. And They moved to a new site and opened that in 2016 under Principal Mark Johnson, who's still there. And it's now grown to, I think, closing in on about 1,200 students. So thank you, Kimberley, for making time to join us this afternoon for this session. Very briefly, some of you are subscribers to Matific and know it well, but others might be wondering, not that the webinar is all about Matific, but aspects of AI and Matific will certainly be covered. I just changed it from saying a primary online digital maths platform to an F9. We're not fully available content for years 8 and 9 in Australia, that is equivalent. That'd be year 10, up to year 10 in New Zealand. It's not totally available, but if you go in by topics, you can certainly access some of the content we've been building up in those lower secondary or middle year levels of education. So basically, students can access through any device in which they have a login and internet connectivity. It's aligned to various curricula around the world, and you have multiple options, often for whatever country or locale you're in. You can also search by textbooks and topics as well. Certainly do that if you're looking for that content in the upper levels, because we still are yet to do the alignment for the curriculum in those levels. And it is driven by AI, so we'll see how AI plays a part in Matific today. There are world-leading experts behind our pedagogy, and locally here where I'm in Brisbane, that includes from the University of Queensland, and in the US, we've got places like Stanford University, for instance, and Berkeley contributing to what we have in our content. Certainly a very engaging and impactful platform and resource for students uplifting their academic progress. And just a little bit more on that on the next screen. Students certainly love Matific. We get all sorts of feedback all the time, sometimes directly from students just writing in saying, your platform is awesome. I'll never forget being at Perth School in Tasmania last year, where I was swamped as Mr. Matific and asked to sign about 30 autographs. So I take all the credit for Andrew and his team's wonderful work as Mr. Matific. They must think I sit up at night creating all this great content. The reason it impacts learning is because it's about developing conceptual understanding by providing mathematics activities in context. And we understand, I do certainly as a former teacher myself, how much pressure teachers are under. And so we have a wonderful plan management system whereby teachers can have the assignment of activities automated to their students, as well as the Adventure Island area, which we'll elaborate on later. 4 types of activities, the 3 of which to the left here can be assigned to the student, the 4th type for direct instruction with the students. The one that really got me in as a teacher, though, the episodes, because this is where you get beautiful graphics, contextualized problems, virtual manipulatives, and visual models. And all of that, of course, is what you need for students to eventually be able to answer rather abstract questions like this one. So now I'm going to progress the slides as our presenters asked me to, and I'll hand over then to Andrew, I think, first up to do the talking regarding our topic of AI.
Any chance I might be able to drive the screen share, Gerard?
Andrew, I'll put that over to you. Do you want to change the permissions there?
If not, we can do it this way.
Sorry, do you want to change the permissions, Gerard?
It's just Andrew thought he'd rather drive the slides himself.
Yeah, maybe you try stopping presenting, Gerard, and I'll see if I can.
Okay.
I have made Andrew the co-host, so he can try.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
so you'll have to stop your share first.
I think so. It's saying new share, so I think, does that mean you're right to go?
So we're still seeing your screen. So
okay, hold on.
Gerard, you can stop sharing. I think then Andrew can share.
Yep, gotcha. Okay.
Right. All right. Okay. Can everyone see this little red guy moving around here? Okay.
Yes.
So I thought I'd start by just talking very generally about AI and why I think it's become such an interesting phenomenon particularly in the last couple of years. I remember when Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov back in the late 90s, and people were talking about how Skynet was like 10 years away. But for me, the moment when I really started paying attention to AI was when a program by IBM called Watson won at a game show called Jeopardy, which is asking questions that you have to answer quickly, and involved searching through a lot of data sets, phrasing your answer as a question. It was really quite an interesting challenge that they managed to do. And it was only a few years after that that Facebook began using its platform called Deepface. When Facebook manages to automatically tag you on all of its photos, it means that facial recognition software has got to the point where it was doing very well at the beginning of the 2010s, and it's only gotten better since then. It was the mid 2010s that AlphaGo defeated Lee Sedol, the world champion at Go. And what all of these, even though each of these achievements are quite incredible, the last couple of years has really transformed what people think about in terms of AI. Because rather than being able to do something very specific like play Go or play chess or recognize faces, we've had in very quick succession technology that allows you to write text of almost any form with ChatGPT, from formal announcements to casual emails. ChatGPT can do that for you. DALL-E and Midjourney are generating images from a single text prompt. It's like those caricaturists, except way faster. And now Sora is OpenAI's video platform. So now we have AI moving into a lot of spaces that we have thought were sort of human exclusive. And there's always this moment when I remember in the chess world, what happened when Garry Kasparov got defeated. It was sort of this moment of sort of stunned silence. And then, you know what? Chess is even more popular than it ever has been. I think the pandemic really helped with that. Same with Go. The Go world was absolutely devastated when AI came along. But now we've sort of adjusted and managed to understand where we're up to. And so my go-to in terms of like how safe is our job here at the Matific content team, I actually, in preparation for the webinar, asked a couple of the leading platforms about to explain this concept. We've been working in, as Gerard mentioned, in the early high school, sort of 6 to 9 grade range lately. And we've been talking a lot about giving concrete representations and conceptual understanding to students for negative numbers. And I asked ChatGPT to explain to a 12-year-old why a negative times a negative is a positive. And I'm not going to read through all of it, but I will just pick out this particular. So -2 chocolates times -3 chocolates actually means gaining -2 times gaining -3 chocolates each time. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And ChatGPT was actually the best at this. Google Gemini, in other words, owing -5 and then owing another -3 is like getting -3 back from your debt. The way that this is phrased, it's almost like if they send you a phone bill and then they send you an electricity bill, you can use your electricity bill to pay your phone bill. But I think aesthetically, my favorite was Microsoft Bing, that just decided that emojis were clearly the way to communicate to 12-year-olds. And here we have Negative Nancy's twin. She's got 3 rotten bananas. If she takes away 2 more rotten bananas, she ends up with 6 less rotten bananas. Okay. Really, at its heart, what we are experiencing here is that all of these chat models don't have any sort of conception of mathematics. They are the predictive text on your phone, except really increased. I asked the Matific content team to give me an example, and I think that other than saying that the content team did a great job here, trying to build up from concrete representations and extending in just the right way. I think the part I wanted to highlight most was they just said, I would never try to explain this to a student in text. Like, no, this is not something that we should do. And I think that it was just refreshing to see that what we have is when we're learning mathematics, we're trying to train students' internal intuition and their internal models of mathematics. This is something that the AI systems, at least right now, lack. And but the one thing that all the AI models have in common that I think is really worth highlighting is the fact that they are all very confident. They seem like someone who remembers a little bit about negative numbers from high school, and they've just got a lot of confidence, and they will just tell you the answer as if they know everything. And if you're not on the content team, you might not necessarily know why those explanations were bad explanations. But oh, they sound really convincing. So that's our assessment. The generative AI has a really big danger, and that is that it's overconfident. It will give you an answer that seems like you should believe it, but you shouldn't. And this can be summarized. Students can be easily misled by something they find on the internet. Now, this is, again, not new. It's not a new challenge that's faced by educators. I remember the phase when students were going onto Google, typing in a keyword from their essay, hitting the I'm feeling lucky button, and whatever they find, that was going straight in their essay. And there was a period of time in which teachers really had to teach their students how to interact with the internet. And just because it's on a website doesn't mean it's true. And then we went through Wikipedia. I found this absolute gem of a question on the internet. If you copy a whole section from Wikipedia and put it into an essay, but then delete the page from Wikipedia, will the school find out if you plagiarized? So I think that in a lot of ways, the challenges that schools are going to be facing with students are very similar to challenges that have been faced before. They're just going to be slightly different. You can't believe everything a chatbot tells you is going to be the new, you can't believe everything you read on Wikipedia. But there is a follow-up, of course, which is Wikipedia is still a fantastic resource. It's still a really good place, and teaching students to effectively use Wikipedia is a great way for them to launch into lots of other topics. And the same is going to be true for AI. There are, however, some other challenges that I think AI brings that is not as, that hasn't been as obvious as before. Something that's being called out quite prominently is a bias that AI exhibits towards both gender and race. This is an example of some prompts. Journalist, but news analyst is a middle-aged white guy reporter, and then news commentator. And it's fairly consistent in the paper that was examining this, that it's fairly consistent in allocating these gender roles. And they're also always Caucasian. And this kind of systematic bias can be really damaging to students and perpetuate some ideas that we're trying to move away from in most societies. So we just need to be very careful for students that not only can the AI be overconfident in what it gives you, but it also can be biased or give you a false impression, and you might not even know it. There's also the issue of profiling. About a couple of years ago, there's a saying which is, if the service is free, then you are the product. And that certainly turned out to be true in the case of Facebook, where people who responded to a survey had unknowingly their personal information uploaded to Cambridge Analytica, who set their AI on it and then fed that into the Trump for President campaign, and they used that for targeted ads. It was a huge scandal. And I think that that is the kind of area that we need to be careful of with educators. Whenever a student is interacting with an AI, we would like that student to be ready to ask, who is collecting my data and what are they going to do with it? Because it could be used to against their interests. It's often hard to tell a student. They think that they're just asking a platform about something to do with their essay, but the AI is very smart and can learn from what you're doing. Part of the framework for artificial intelligence that the government in Australia is undergoing right now is looking into how these AI platforms take student data and what they do with it as a very important part of assessing this. And getting students to be aware of that is also important. There is also, of course, the issue of assessment integrity. Being able to take your student's text and copy it and, oh, it matches this Wikipedia article that someone tried to delete. I bet they cheated. Instead, every time you ask an AI a prompt, it'll give you something slightly different. So this was a report that I read. It was from the United States, and it was within the last year, so September 23, the report was released, and more than half of students said they had used generative AI in some capacity, and nearly 20% of students admitted to using it in an assessment scenario. Furthermore, OpenAI has said, sorry, there's no reliable way for educators to determine if students are using ChatGPT. There has been a sort of an arms race between companies that will give your students generative AI and then other companies that will say, well, our AI is really good at telling if your students have used AI. It's like our super AI spotter. But both of these, I think, are probably going to end up being the wrong approach. Ultimately, I think that it's a challenge that teachers are going to be facing for a long time, particularly in the humanities subjects, as we saw before, not so much in mathematics. But ultimately, my prediction is that AI is going to become a part of the tool set, and it will have to change the way that assessments are done. Some assessments will still be done by pencil and paper or pen in a real life setting, just to ensure the integrity there. But offering assessments where students can use whatever AI tools they like and sort of making it open book with respect to AI might yield a lot of interesting results. So let's now turn to Matific, and I want to talk a little bit about what we are doing with AI now and what we'll be doing in the future. The key for us is that AI needs to have a very clearly defined scope, a very particular task for it to do. If we are just asking it to interact with students and help them with their questions, that feels like nowhere near worth investing in at the moment. But one thing that artificial intelligence is very good at is recommendations. Whenever you go to YouTube or any page or any app that provides you with a list of recommendations, I'm willing to bet a good sum of money that artificial intelligence is involved in generating that list somehow. It is actually pretty good at doing recommendations. We're also exploring its ability to predict. I'll get to that in the future, but I want to talk first about how artificial intelligence is being used right now in the Matific product. Adventure Island is a part of Matific that its promise is that it allows every student to play activities that are at their level. And this is something that when I was a teacher, I remember taking a look at all the different questions and dividing my class up into 3 different bands and assigning different question sets to each of the bands. It was quite tedious to just try and get the students to be working on the right material. And it was part of my inspiration to move into EdTech was to see if we could leverage the power of technology to really get that personalization working. So it is a big challenge. students will interact with us, and then they'll have 2 months where they don't use Matific at all, and they'll be learning lots of things in that time. How quickly can we catch up? But the very basics in terms of how the adaptive algorithm functions is that at its heart, it has a list of skills that we put together manually, humans, and the data set that the AI is working over is actually really good. So what you see here is a representation of some skills that we have under the hood in the Matific algorithm. So here we have Nuva, and she is working on fraction addition, concrete representations, unlike denominators. And we have very, very specific skills, and but there's an activity there. And let's say that Nuva gets 5 stars on this activity. Good job, Nuva. Now, instead of moving Nuva up to do this next section and getting her to do strategies on unlike denominators, we just check to see, has she demonstrated the ability to do strategies on like denominators? If she hasn't, then we will move her across there and see how she goes. So she got 5 stars up here. We're doing an activity in this area. She got 5 stars in that one too. Great. Well, we are now confident that she is ready to move up to working on strategies with unlike denominators. So we move students through this graph as best we can, and using rules that are enforced by the artificial intelligence. The rules are quite simple. They are more complicated than the rules that we used to write the first AI program that could beat people at checkers. But I'd say it's less complicated than the artificial intelligence used to beat people at chess. Let's say instead we have Brug. He's doing the same activity, working in the same area, and he gets 2 stars. Well, the first thing we're going to do is, well, we've been trying to work with Brug on concrete representations of unlike denominators. Well, we should help him out by giving him some concrete representations with like denominators. So we'll move him back 1 step. And then if he also doesn't do too well there, then maybe we will move him backwards even further. Oops, sorry, too far. Move him backwards even further to help him understand what fractions are and how they're different from numbers that you might see in before you introduce fractions. So I am glossing over some of the details. We try and take more factors into account. But at its heart, what this allows us to do is, even though both Nuva and Brug started off at the same place, we move each student through our activities in as smart a way as we can. Once Brug has demonstrated that he can do making fractions, we'll move him back up through the path, and he'll be able to see the same activities that he failed before, but this time he'll encounter success. And that can be a really empowering moment for students as well. Of course, if we already know that the student is good at a skill, we'll try and find a different prerequisite, try and find the knowledge gap there. But at the end of the day, the rules that power Adventure Island are powering the majority of interactions that students have with Matific. It's the most powerful part of the most used part of the Matific platform. And I think that it's because students feel like they are always being given something that is at their level of challenge. So that's how we're using AI right now. And it's just helping us enforce rules and make recommendations to personalize a learning path for students. Something that we will be releasing within the next 3 to 6 months is the ability for teachers to have a bit of a guiding hand when it comes to Adventure Island, being able to nominate, actually, I don't want my students to be working on fractions. We're doing geometry right now, and sort of nominating geometry as the area within which the artificial intelligence can operate, which will allow teachers to align the adaptive experience with what they're teaching in class. And we expect that's going to be a very powerful and interesting feature that teachers will really like. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk about a new report that we're preparing. I was asked when I first was invited to speak at this webinar if there was anything that I could give attendees for them to take home. And a brand new report sounds like a great one. So I'll talk through what our new system does, how it works, and then you'll be able to see the results and where we're up to in with your class if you're a Matific staff member. So again, I will try and walk through a toy example so you understand what we're trying to do. So here we have Blake, a year 3 student in Australia or New Zealand or the UAE, wherever they are. We're going to be comparing him with his peers. So Blake has played these 4 activities in sequence. With airport regrouping machine, he got 4 stars. Baker multiplication got 2 stars. Estimation game, 4 stars. Tokyo Olympics, 3 stars. So the question is then, what is Blake going to get if he plays rhythm common denominators? And just looking at this, if you as a teacher knew Blake very well and understood how and where and why he got those activities wrong, you might be able to make a guess. But what we have in our platform is millions of students playing millions of activities every day. So what we can do is we can take a look at Sam, who is a year 3 student who played a very similar sequence of activities to Blake. 4 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, 2 stars, and then 3 stars on that activity. And then we have Alex, a year 4 student, who got 4 stars, 3 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, 4 stars. And so what we are doing is taking a look at students who are very similar to Blake, who have had a very similar experience to Blake and are making the same sorts of mistakes that Blake is making, and trying to make a prediction on this upcoming activity. We have a machine learning model that looks at that tries to find patterns in this data and produces predictions for Blake. And so right now, the machine learning model will predict that Blake is probably going to get 3 stars if he plays this activity right now without any other activities in his journey. So that's the very basis of the machine learning model, trying to use it to predict student success. But it doesn't just have to be this episode. The machine learning model has predicted this result for Blake, but has also predicted across different episodes. So it's saying he'll get 3 stars for this fraction episode, 2 stars for this one, 4 stars for this one, 3 stars for this one. And then we can compare this against other students. So overall, if we took a look at all the year 2 students at the start of the year who played Matific last year, what were the predictions for them? What about year 3? What about year 4? And by comparing Blake to students at the start of year 3, students at the start of year 4, and at various other starting positions, we make the conclusion that in this topic, this fractions topic, our predictions for Blake are most similar to an average student at the start of year 3. So this is our way of saying, based on what Blake has done so far, we think that he's playing like a student who is about the grade 3 level of fractions. Now, as Blake continues to play and gets good results or bad results, the more information that the machine learning model gets, the more accurate it becomes in its predictions. And what we end up producing is a report. And this report will tell you very roughly where your students are across different topics. Once they've played a certain number of activities, the model will start making predictions. But here what you can see is that Blake is being predicted as being a grade 3 level in numbers up to 20, a grade 3 level in multi-digit numbers and place value, and you can see roughly where he sits. But you can also see the distribution of your class and see which ones are doing well, which ones are behind. And this will, if you have just started to teach subtraction, you'll know which students are the ones who might need additional support. and the students who might need extension. And this will articulate across each topic. Now, this is actually available for you to view right now. You can, it is in Matific. The one thing that isn't is there's no way to navigate there. Part of the reason we're doing this is that we want teachers who are interested in Matific and interested in cutting edge technology to take a look at this report and tell us what they think. So you will have to go to this URL manually. So it's if you look at the URL in your class, it will look some in the teacher platform, it'll say matific.com, and then this is the locale. So it'll be AU for Australia, or NZ or NZMI for New Zealand. And other teachers will see that if you're in the UAE, there'll be a similar thing. And then teachers, reports, and then you'll have to type in student-learning-level. When you see it, please be aware that we are still working on some of the algorithms and some of the look and feel. Please expect it to change, but we are very interested to hear what you think about these predictions and whether or not it will be helpful and useful in your class. So that's the little take home. Log into your Matific account and you can check that out for your class and see how we did in terms of our estimation and our accuracy. So I think that's all that I had for presenting now. And now I think I'll just stop my share and hand back over to Gerard so that we can talk. But yes, just while Gerard's getting that back up, I just wanted to summarize by saying artificial intelligence poses a lot of challenges for teachers, but it also poses challenges for those of us making teacher resources. But Matific is always going to be inclined towards using artificial intelligence in very precise and targeted ways with the utmost care for your students' security and privacy. That's why we will only feed the artificial intelligence model things like what grade a student is in and what their activity results are. The model has no understanding of what school they're in or even what their name is. They're just data points that it works on. This not only makes the model more accurate, but it's much safer as well.
So thanks, Andrew. What we're going to do now is run through some questions for both you and for Kimberley, and then look for questions as well through the chat section or ones people sent in. So Kimberley, if you can make sure you're unmuted, please. The first question is to you as your role of a deputy principal of a large school. In the context of technology integration, could you please comment on how you provide insight into specific AI tools utilised by your teachers within your school environment?
Yeah, so we currently utilise a variety of tools within our school, mainly within our upper school, so our 5-6s. So we're a prep to 6 school. We've got 1,300 students at the moment, or just under 1,300 students. And our upper school, they provide professional learning for all of our teachers who are willing to jump on board, and also our ICT team, who they're offering professional learning for all of our teachers. We are currently using a variety of AI tools within the school. So today, for example, our Year 6 teachers, I was in their classroom and they're using ChatGTP as part of their writing. I'll also admit we don't use it for maths as such. That's a difficult area to use it in. So we're using it more in the English side of things. So our Year 6 team, we're using it for writing. They were doing a writing piece. I know the teachers were giving feedback through ChatGTP, but then the teachers also give feedback personally also, because as was brought up before, you can't always agree with what is written in ChatGTP. You also have to give that personalized feedback also. So they're making that very, very clear with the students too. We also use Curipod, and that is supporting our EALD students too. It's giving that instant feedback to the students, and they're really, really enjoying that too. So that's two different programs that we're using for their writing in particular. So yeah, that's a couple of programs that we're using at the school, and the teachers are really, really enjoying that. And so a lot of people jumping on board and giving it a go in class too.
Thanks, Kimberley. In fact, even in the rugby league club where I'm a committee member, we had, I think our club captain submit something recently. He had a committee meeting, we looked at it, and the comment was made, I don't think he wrote this. I think he's got this from some sort of ChatGPT type site, because it didn't sound like his sort of language. Andrew, are you using AI tools in your work? Obviously, I'm not talking, you've already talked about how Matific itself uses it, but to do your work. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the thing that I was using it this week was to do some grammar checking. The volumes of 5 cylinders are given in the table below, or is given, trying to check that just to make sure that we're right on that. But the other one is in coding. There are some very excellent AI tools that will help you. I've always been more of an amateur dabbler when it comes to anything involving computers. I've never had any sort of formal training, but in terms of giving me something that will work, AI has been very helpful there. But more than anything, I think it's as a brainstorming tool. When we have our meetings on thinking about the next content items that we're going to be producing, we'll often have artists there at the same time as the pedagogy experts, and we'll be trying to come up with contexts where particular concepts will be worthwhile. And we've used ChatGPT in that scenario to say, give us 12 ideas where these two things could happen at once. And I don't think we've used any of the ideas that they gave us directly, but just as a brainstorming tool, as a sort of a starting point to get the juices flowing, it's been really helpful.
Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that you're keeping on about the correct grammar, even though we're a maths platform. It's something I'm big on, and I was just correcting.
Grammar pedantry is very close to math pedantry, so you'd be surprised. Yeah.
So, Kimberley, you sort of touched on this in your last question, but basically just wanted to ask you about how the teachers might be using AI to solve particular problems they have in the classroom. Is there something you feel you can add to what you already said there, and how it's playing a positive role for your day-to-day?
Yeah, so I'm back on, sorry. The ability to give immediate feedback is the game changer for teachers, because the time constraints that they are under in a classroom is the biggest thing. So that's what they need. They need something that's going to give them back more time. So anything that's a time saver is what they want in a classroom. So what they're using at the moment with the side of ChatGPT is how they're able to differentiate learning a little bit more. So changing the complexity of texts, changing questions, creating different questions and context based on different concepts. That's probably what's helping them, and just cutting down that time a little bit for them. And I know there's been a few questions. I'm trying to answer them as I'm going. So CuraPod was the one that we've been using with EALD students, so I'll keep typing that in. But yeah, so that's probably the biggest thing, is the time constraints that the teachers are facing at the moment, and the way that we can help them to try and get some time back is what they want. That's what I'm hearing from on the floor. So
they often say that they're asked to do too much for too many with too little, but they do an amazing job. And I think a big emphasis in recent times has been on teachers having to differentiate their instruction, which is a desirable goal, but a very challenging task when there's one of you and perhaps 30 of them. It's like triage in a medical emergency ward. And that's probably a good segue, Andrew, to the next question for you. In your presentation, you spent a fair bit of time talking about personalisation. So why have you made it such a big focus in Matific?
I think it's it's because the experience of the students at Kimberley School is just universal. Every teacher I speak to wants to do more with less time. There are just so many tasks that a teacher needs to be on top of. And as always, it's just a constant battle as a teacher to get yourself some free time, some free headspace, and it's very difficult. And I think that for teachers, what they want is to be able to, as much as possible, interact with their students as if that was their only student, to know exactly what is right for that student and know exactly how to do it. And as Kimberley mentioned, teachers putting in assessments into ChatGPT to try and change the language to fit it to another student and make it more appropriate. There is an enormous amount of time that teachers spend on trying to personalize their approach to their students. So I think that it's why we want to help teachers get an idea faster. The new report, one of its key goals is to give you an idea of how to personalize, and then outside of Matific, but also personalizing within Matific with the adaptive path. The goal is always to save teachers time, but help them achieve their goals. Not to outsource their personalization, but to help them achieve what they would have achieved if they had a time turner and could go back and do the day a second time. We just want to help them get there faster. And it's a really exciting part of education technology. And yeah, it's why I get out of bed in the morning.
I'm glad you do. Kimberley, the smooth integration of AI into the learning process requires adequate support. So how well supported do you feel teachers are in assisting students who may need guidance when utilising AI tools?
Yeah, our Year 6 team are what is leading it at the school here, and we have an amazing Year 6 team who are actually guiding everything. They're going off and doing professional learning themselves, and then have led this through pretty much themselves. And then they've got the ICT team backing them too. I'm from Melbourne, so it's very different being in Melbourne to up here. We have a lot of, I guess you could say, red tape in Queensland. There's a lot of things we've got to jump through up here in order to have things approved at a school level. So in order to use AI in a school and certain programs in a school, you have to have them approved. Otherwise, the department won't let you use them. So you have to make sure that they've been approved through, they've got to be risk assessed. They have to be, we've currently got a trial being undertaken by 10 schools up in Queensland about AI. We're not one of them, but we're waiting to hear how that's looking. So once we get that data back from what those 10 schools have found, we'd like to hear what those schools have found so we can implement that also and take that further. There's also, and I know Andrew said about it before, I've got it written down, the Australian Framework for Generative Artificial Intelligence. That's being undertaken at the moment. We're waiting to hear about what that framework's also looking for. So there's a lot going on, and our Year 6 teams constantly reinventing what they're doing and looking at what's around to see what's best for the students. So they're not always on computers, the students. They're looking at what's happening and what's going to best suit the students for what they're doing for that activity. So I know I'm saying, we're using this, we're using that. We're not doing it all the time. It's just for what's happening for that activity and what's needed for that activity. It's to show students, what I was in there for today with writing, then the writing piece they were doing still had 10 steps they had to get through, which showed them how to edit it. They were still editing it by hand. So even though they got feedback through, chat GTP. They also got chat feedback from their teacher. Then they were editing it with their pencil. Then they were editing it with the VCOP that we use. So lots of different steps to show them. So it wasn't just, here's some feedback from chat GTP, off you go. Students were still using dictionary. Students were still using lots of different forms of feedback too. So it's just one little part of what we're doing up here. So, yeah.
Exactly how I talk to teachers about Matific, we're saying it's certainly not a replacement for hands-on maths. It's just one resource as part of your repertoire. Andrew,
just to support.
Thank you. Is there anything else, Andrew, you're working on with AI with Matific, or do you feel what you've talked about already covers it?
Well, I can say one thing we're not working on, which is there are even some edtech products out there that have you can ask the chatbot if you have math problems and it will answer you. I think it was that overconfidence problem that I mentioned at the beginning that just we don't at the moment see any value there. But something that we are working on, I can mention, this is very much just in the discovery phase of development, but we're working on being able to one thing that AI is very good at is one thing that I've used it for is you give the AI a URL of a recipe and it says, can you please just tell me what the recipe is? And it will just sort of cut out all the business and just give you the recipe. It's great. Or it'll summarize a news article. Very good there. And so we're currently looking at ways that the AI might be able to summarize Matific's reporting for a teacher to sort of just give me the headlines is what we're sort of looking for. Can the AI take the hundreds of plays that a student has done and give the teacher just the top 3 most important things for them to know in sort of written in sentences? And so that's the challenge that we're looking into. We've got no idea if it's going to work, but that's what we're working on.
Sounds like the AI might replace me with my wife, because you'll be horrified to hear this, Andrew. But when she needs to solve a math problem, she asks me to work it out for her, and I always try to say, "I'll show you how you can do this." And she says, "No, I just want to know the answer.
Just give me the
so,
yep.
Just give me the answer. Just do it for me." Kimberley, last one for you. Carry on. With the broader educational landscape, is there anything you are particularly excited to see from the AI technology in the near future?
The biggest thing that I would like to see, and I took these questions to the staff too. So I sat down with them and I went, here we go. What do we want to see? They want to see AI supporting teachers and schools to give feedback to students, and that they want it to be responsive to what's happening now and that it's current to educational trends, and not something, as I've said before, that's going to add on to their current roles. It needs to be something that's going to take away time for them, that's actually going to support them in their roles. They need to, because, everything's time poor, as we've spoken about. It needs to be rich. It needs to give real-time, authentic learning opportunities, and it needs to help students in that everyday, on the floor, what we're teaching needs to be there. That's what they want. So that's what I hope AI can actually help us with, and not hinder what we're doing. I want it to support what we're doing. So, yeah.
Okay. As they say in the commercial world, ROI, return on investment. So, Andrew, last one for you before we throw it open to the other questions people have sent in. A bit of future gazing. 10 years from now, what's your best case scenario for AI in education?
I think that the best case scenario, from my point of view, is helping teachers connect with one another. So right now on the content team at Matific, we have some absolutely brilliant instructional designers and game designers who work on our activities. But at the same time, I just know that there are lots of teachers with lots of amazing ideas. The kinds of tools that we have to create activities are quite complex to use at Matific. And I think the best case scenario for me would be that a teacher who's got a really good idea for something that they would like students to complete can work and create something really engaging, really interactive, and get it into the hands of lots of people all at once. And for then, when students interact with it, to have that personalized feedback coming back. So the best case scenario for me is that AI can work on the kinds of problems that have been part of the teaching profession for centuries, and start to really work on those, helping teachers, really great teachers, maximize their impact with their students, but also touch the lives of students elsewhere and interact with other teachers who are like-minded, so that it's not just each teacher within each school, but teachers from all around the world being able to give feedback to each other. And yeah, I'd say that's the best case scenario.
All right. Well, thank you for answering all those questions, both of you, for me. Now, if you've already had a look at some of the other questions, feel free to jump in on them. Otherwise, I can bring ones up from both the chat and the Q&A section, and you can cherry pick some to answer in the last 7 minutes of this hour-long session. I don't know if you've seen there, or if you've you guys sharing or not? Oops, sorry, come back.
So I think it's
Yeah. You can see those questions. So how can a teacher incorporate AI into their teaching and lesson planning, other than emphasizing the use of AI through the Matific platform? Anything you wish to add, either of you there?
Oh, right, I see. I think that what Kimberley's Year 6 team sounds like they're doing sounds great. Getting students to put their writing into ChatGPT for feedback is just a really good way. It sets up the right dynamic, I think, in that you are giving, like, students have something they're creating, they're seeking very specific feedback about the writing in this area, and it can be a really powerful, helpful tool there. Right now, the AI tools haven't really been adapted for the education scenario as well as we might like, but maybe that's a good thing. So I would definitely emphasize the helping your students interact with these tools rather than actually using AI for lesson planning. But that would be just my recommendation. I don't know, maybe Kimberley has a different idea.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's the same sort of thing. Yeah, we just use it. Well, I mean, little people don't use it as much. It's just our senior students that are using it. And yeah, it's just used in the teaching side of things. I wouldn't really encourage teachers to go and use ChatGPT for their lesson planning.
Yes.
We as a school do our planning as a team. But yeah, but again, we don't use it for Matific as such. It's really just used for English in that way, and it is only our senior students that are using it at the moment like that. Because yeah, it's not as well developed, and as I said, it's quite locked down up here to what we can and can't use. So yeah, the Year 6 team have had to go through a lot of protocols in order to get what they can use it for. So yeah, which I think answers the other one down there too. So yeah,
I see another one from Roderick, who was asking about the 10 schools in Queensland Are they the ones who have been selected by the government framework on artificial intelligence to do the pilots? Is it just 10?
there was
Because I
just
think
10.
it's 10 per state, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about other states. I'm not too sure. So apologies about that. But I just know there's 10 schools in Queensland that have been chosen. And they're across prep, or not prep, but primary and secondary that are part of it. So it's a government part of research. So that started last year. So we'll get the results of that this year. So, yeah.
So I'm just going to put the link to the education website in the chat if you're interested in what Kimberley's referring to. We're also paying close attention at Matific to see, where what comes out of this.
I'll just check here in the chat as well. Okay, so you got the various links and so on there.
That one about rubrics, they're not using rubrics as such. We do follow our assessments that we have up here in Queensland for feedback. So when we do assessments and that is discussed with students, it sort of does look like a rubric, I guess you could say. But yeah, the ChatGTP is just ChatGTP. And there was another question, but I don't know where it went, about did the students send theirs into ChatGTP? And yeah, they'll email theirs through, and then the teachers get the emails, and then they go from there. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think it's was shown by Andrew's examples recently where the system struggled to help with the question about negative and positive numbers, that they don't necessarily even understand where the typical 12-year-old is at, let alone know your individual 12-year-olds that are sitting in your class. So in terms of planning, there's got to have limitations, because although it can mine data, it's not going to know a student like the teacher knows a student. I'll just check. I think one of in a late entry there. So we're just about out of time. So I'll just go back, touch your mouse here. Special offer for the people attending today. I'll just hide that so it's out of the way of that QR code. If you want a moment to scan that code, wrong one, just hopefully it's on the screen enough, that we've got some copies of Math for All, which is written by Deputy Principal Mark Hanson from up at Sandy Strait in the Harvey Bay area of Queensland. It's not the only book Mark's written. Mark's a renowned maths educator, and it's got a lovely message, this book, about you don't have to be a brilliant in the field of mathematics like Andrew is in order to be good at maths. If of course you meet teachers, if teachers meet kids at the right zone of proximal development and so on, we know they can all be good at mathematics. So it's a lovely little storybook there, and there are teaching notes that accompany it as well. So I have 10 copies of those and teaching notes that I'll post out to the first 10 schools that request a demonstration of Matific. Might have to make sure one of those copy makes its way over to you at Pallara, Kimberley, as a thank you for today. So hopefully you've had enough time to scan that. It will be in the recording as well. Of course, you can always come back to it. There's a second one for you, and that one is just to give us your feedback. So if you want to do the questionnaire to let us know what you thought of the webinar, and any ways that we can improve what we've done with these. So, sorry, I missed that. No, but thank you very much, firstly, Kimberley and Andrew, for your presentations and your answering of the questions this afternoon. I hope this has been useful to everybody who's joined us, wherever you are around the globe, whether you're beginning your day or ending it, or moving into the afternoon. We're very appreciative that you've taken the time out of your day to join us. And I was thinking, if you are wanting to look at that new report that Andrew shared and you didn't Catstat, it was quite hard, just contact us at Matific, and we can help guide you to where you can see the sort of dark release of that particular feature. That's at the moment something we'd love to get your feedback on. So I suppose just in final, I think this topic really underlines the importance of both critical literacy and critical numeracy in terms of, it's really hard to know what to believe. I received an email today, supposedly from an airline, saying that I was entitled to a refund. Last week, I got a very similar one that said it was from a travel agent, and it looked very authentic. But of course, looking into it, it looks like it's a scam. So, that's just, of course, a small example of how these days it's very hard to work out what's real and what's not. But hopefully, although we've got the AI playing chess for Andrew, we're not going to see robots replacing our footballers on the football field. So in Australia, whether that's the AFL or NRL tonight, or in fact our Socceroos are playing Lebanon tonight. So even in that code of football, we'll keep to having real players, I think, not bots. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you at our next webinar.